Hello, welcome to my first full-length video. This is the Carl Froch and George Groves fight review. In November 2013, Carl Froch defended his WBA and IBF super middleweight titles against George Groves. Coming into the fight, I felt that really George Groves hadn't really beat anyone specifically good. But obviously, then again, he was somehow he was the second in the IBF, and I'm not sure where he was in the WBA. Obviously, rankings mean nothing in boxing currently. Which is quite poor, considering when I first watched boxing years ago, it actually meant something. Like now, really, boxing ratings don't really mean much, because if you look at it in the 90s and the 80s, when you had to actually fight for the actual Pacific ranking. But anyway, that's a different topic. So anyway, coming to the fight, I thought it could be an interesting fight because George Groves, obviously, he's quick, he's young, athletic, he's quick. Like I said, obviously, not really sure about his chin. I saw he got dropped to one of his earlier fights in 2012, but then again, I gave him hope because obviously, young. Like I said, he's young, so obviously, and he wanted it, and he believed in himself. That's what you need. You need to obviously believe in yourself if you're going to win fights. And against Carl Froch is a seasoned professional. He's tough. He's been with great people like Andre Ward, Miguel Kessler, Arthur Abraham. So obviously he knows what he's doing. He's got a tough chin, probably one of the best in boxing at the minute. So it's going to be a hard fight. So in the build-up, George Groves did a really good job. It was quite funny actually to see that he actually got under Carl Froch's skin and he was winding him up. And I found it hysterical because when you think about it, like if Carl Froch is so good and he's so like seasoned and like an actual good professional, why is he letting George Groves, who you can tell is nowhere near as good as Carl Froch in the matter of actual skill? Well, obviously that's a bit that's up for debate. So I just kept thinking it was quite funny because like every time I was watching like a press conference or just like interviews, regardless of what company it was for, you could tell Carl Froch was extremely annoyed by it. So he did a good job about that. So as it went down to the fight, obviously you can see that the weigh-in happened. It was kind of neutral fan base that I can remember, and he did a good job in sending it. So anyway, but on to the actual fight, first fight. He knocked him down first round, great start, and he dominated Carl Froch. I watched that fight a few times, and for the 8 rounds, he dominated. He had him in the back foot, combinations, he was beating him with power as well. He was knocking Carl Froch back, and Carl Froch was just not the same fighter that I know he was in previous fights. So obviously, then he got stopped controversial by Howard Foster, I think that was his name, which is obviously quite controversial. He should have been stopped. In my eyes, George Groves could have carried on if he had got out of that type spot he was in. I think he might have been able to survive around more. But I still could have seen Carl Froch still would have went on to probably knock him out. Anyway, fast forward till May of this year, rematch. Everybody wanted to see. I was looking forward to it. I watched the fight again, and this time George Groves did the same sort of tactics in the build-up. He tried to get under his skin because he believed obviously he did well. He did do well in the first fight. I give him credit. It was a great performance by George Groves, but like many people said, he only had a game plan for 8 or 9 rounds. He didn't have a 12 round fight. And to be fair, you have to have that nowadays against Carl Froch, especially a quality, decent fighter who's been 12 rounds a lot, and he knows the world title level, whereas George Groves doesn't. So anyway, into the fight, both came in peak condition, 80,000 fans, Wembley Stadium. That's a quality atmosphere. It's the biggest atmosphere I've seen in the fight. So obviously I was excited. I didn't really know what was going to happen because obviously going into the fight, George Groves, he believed in himself, he did really well. Carl Froch obviously was trying to redeem himself, even though obviously he won the first fight. It wasn't a great performance, so it was up in the air. It was 50-50. George Groves had nothing really to prove in that. He needed to have a better game plan. It was all for Carl Froch. And for me, Carl Froch did say in one of his, I think it was after the weigh-in, it was all on George Groves so much pressure, which is, I didn't really actually I didn't actually think what he was saying was particularly true. I think it was 50-50, but that's just my opinion. Anyway, going into the main fight, second fight rematch, that's 8,000 fans, great atmosphere. To be honest, it was quite disappointing because it was so cagey in the first 5-6 rounds. Nothing really happened, and a few things happened, the odd right hand, and eventually, as it took over, you could tell George Groves didn't really, he didn't really do enough to win the rounds, in my view. Obviously, that's just my opinion. He didn't throw the right hand enough. In the first fight, if you look at it again, George goes through right hand after right hand after right hand, consistently hitting him. Where was the right hand in the second fight? It was nowhere to be seen. So I think on his part, the game plan wasn't very good. Yeah, he might have had a 12-round game plan, but in my eyes, he didn't really have the correct game plan to actually beat Froch. He didn't do enough to really beat the to really. I don't know. He didn't really do enough to really actually win the round, like I said. So going into the 8th round, I don't know. It's hard to score. I didn't. It could have been George Groves, could have been Froch, and then it was funny because previously in weigh-ins, other interviews, he kept saying left hand, left hook, left hook. Not really the best thing to actually say to your opponent. Oh, I'm going to be throwing the left hand the whole time. To me, you don't really do that, which is kind of a bit really odd in my view. Anyway, got into the 8th round, kind of as up in the air, could have gone either way. Then as that Froch was moving in, you could tell he was going to go for the finish because he obviously, in his eyes, he believed he could finish him. And the right hand that connected to knock him out was a ridiculously good punch. It doesn't matter how good you are. I think that would have knocked out the majority of people if it was different weights. If he was a heavyweight, Froch was a heavyweight, I'm pretty sure he'd knock someone out. If he was a welterweight, he'd knock someone out. Same with obviously the weight he is at now. And it was quite poor because George Groves was just wide open. It wasn't great, and obviously got knocked out. And that was it, really. There's no way to get up, and that nothing to do with the ref. The right call, stopped it straight away. So obviously George Groves had lost the second time. So kind of overall, to be fair, that's the end of it, really. There's no need for a third fight. If there's a third fight happening, it's kind of pointless. Maybe good for money sort of sense, but then again, we all know within 2 fights, George Groves can't beat Froch, so that's the end of it. I've heard a few different stories. Froch might go over to Vegas, obviously the fight capital of the world, and fight Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. That'd be a great fight because Chavez is a ridiculously heavy middleweight, and then I think at one fight I watched him a couple of years ago, he came in 181 pounds when the limit for middleweight is 160. That's ridiculous. That's what, 21 pounds heavier than you came in a day before. Anyway, that'd be a great fight. I think obviously, really, when you think about it, 2 quality, heavy-handed fighters, quality with chins, it makes sense. For George Groves, I think back to the drawing board, like he said, he doesn't really, I don't know, he can get a world title, but not against Froch or Andre Ward, maybe Sako Bika, the WBC super middleweight champion. That's just my opinion. But so this has been my fight review of the George Groves Froch rematch. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks.